correctly, there is a good chance that quite a few of you would recognize that lovely opening theme. How to Train Your Dragon is a children's book series by Christianized. I know, there's books, because most people are only aware of its much more popular and very, very good, but wildly inaccurate movie series adaptation. There are 12 books of How to Train Your Dragon in total, and although there are 12, unfortunately most people don't read past the first one. And while this is wildly unfortunate because they're very good books, they're my favorite books. It is understandable because the first book is, quite frankly, what you'd expect from a children's book. It's pretty immature, it's got a lot of crass toilet humor, and it has a battle to the death with not one but 2 giant sea dragons. Although said battle to the death does involve filling underpants with feathers to trigger dragon asthma. So make of that what you will. However, as the series goes on, it matures with our main character. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start where the story actually starts, which doesn't get revealed too much later. So, there was humans, and there was dragons. And that's something you probably know about How to Train Your Dragon, because the thing everyone remembers about the How to Train Your Dragon movies are those lovable, adorable dragons like Toothless. I'm going to need you to take everything that you know about the dragons from the How to Train Your Dragon movies and set them aside for a minute. Because the dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon books, while still lovable, are not anything like the dragons in the How to Train Your Dragon movies. They're not giant cats. They're basically giant people. They have their own society, their own customs, their own culture, and their own language. And in the beginning, there was humans and there was dragons. But then one day, there was this boy called Hiccup, who found a dragon stuck in a tree. Now, humans and dragons were enemies, but the boy decided to help the dragon anyway. And then from there on, because the dragon had a lot of influence, he was a big, powerful sea dragon, things just sort of happened. The 2 societies realized that they did better working together instead of, fighting all the time. So that went on for a couple centuries. And then something really bad happened. There's another boy called Hiccup. And, there's a dragon too. Now, there's a lot to go over here. A lot of history, a lot of context, but I won't get into it. The important thing you need to know is that Hiccup's own dad winds up violently killing him during a game of chess. And Hiccup's dragon brother, Furious, remember him for later, is so enraged by this, for obvious reasons, that's his brother, that he swears he's going to kill all humanity. Now, he doesn't get around to doing that, and we sort of lose track of him for a few centuries, possibly even a millennia. It's been a while, and we come to present day, where the books actually start. Our protagonist, also named Hiccup, is on the Isle of Berk. And, yeah, you can picture the Berk of the movies for this. Because I couldn't tell you what Berk actually looks like. Actually, I probably could. It's a bit boggier. It's rainy, it's cold, it's snowy, it's dreary, but it's home. You just have to picture home. Because that's really what the books make you feel. They make you feel home. Berk, this world, this archipelago where these Vikings live, there's 12 books. It really does become home as you read this series. You can tell how much the characters love it, whether or not they admit it out loud, and you probably start to love it too. Hiccup, he's a little boy. By the time the series ends, he's only 14. He and his friends go on all these wacky adventures. He's like a prophesied hero. Actions don't really have consequences until about the 8th book, when Hiccup does something kind of unfortunate. Hiccup frees a sea dragon. A pretty old sea dragon who has been bound in strong chains. that it cannot free itself from. And unlike all the rest of Hiccup's adventures, where they don't really have lasting consequences, in the next book is when things really get crazy. And book 9, it is revealed that sea dragon that Hiccup just freed, that's the Dragon Furious. And after being locked up for about 1,000 years, he's pretty dang cranky, as I figure any of us would be. And he sets about gathering his dragon army again, because, well, he gets a lot of recruits. And reason for that is, like I said in the beginning, it was pretty equal footing. Dragons and humans were a lot more like brethren, and dragons haven't changed. They're still pretty much people. Just how they're being treated has changed. Dragons are basically an allegory for slaves. They are treated very poorly in the time that we meet Hiccup the Third, our protagonist. They are their pets, their horses, their meat, they are hide, they are animals, even though they're not. So he has no problem amassing this army to wipe out all of humanity and burn the world to cinders. So the first time we meet his army, I'm going to give you a little sample of how dark, and you might even say apocalyptic, these books get. We hear their terrifying war chant called the Red Rage. Make red your claws with human blood. Obliterate the human filth. Torch the humans like a wood. The rebellion is coming. So, you might think that, oh, Hiccup's going to have to save the world. Well, I've got bad news for you. The world does get destroyed. The whole prophesied hero thing, it's still true, but it kind of takes a while to come to fruition, and there's a lot of upsies, a lot of downsies, whole lot of downsies. 14-year-old Hiccup winds up an outcast. His mother almost kills him. There's a lot going on, but the main thing you need to know is that Hiccup does manage to save this absolutely obliterated world. And I want to make it very clear, you are not supposed to be on the human side in any way, shape, or form here. The dragons may have burned down that world, but the humans were the one who pulled their tails and lit the torch, because humans are the ones that treated dragons like this. They are the ones that have abused them. They are the ones that have never learned from their mistakes. They are the ones that keep repeating history and keep making things worse. So as I said, Hiccup does manage to save the world. He finds the one thing that the Dragon Furious is afraid of. It's the dragon's jewel, but we're not going to get into that. So he finds the dragon's jewel, and he goes and he holds it up, and he has his hero moment where he confronts Furious and tells Furious that if he doesn't call it off, he's going to unleash the power of the dragon's jewel on him. If he doesn't just let the small number of this little archipelago that still are alive live, Hiccup's going to turn loose this thing that will eventually kill all of dragons. And Furious agrees. What other choice does he have, really? But they come to a somewhat agreeable conclusion. The only unfortunate thing is, where there was once dragons and humans, now there has to be just dragons. Because humans are greedy. They could live in harmony with dragons. They have all this history to look back on where they did live in harmony with dragons. But they won't, because they're greedy, and you see a lot more short-term profit if you don't do right by dragons. So the dragons have to hide. They have to hibernate and sleep for forever. There has to be a world without dragons because humans are so friggin' greedy. Humans literally destroy their own world. They have all the history to look back on. They have the good things to follow. They have the mistakes to not. And they still can't change because profit. I don't know, man. I don't get it either. But unfortunately, I do get it. Humans kind of are the problem. They don't have to be, but they just are. Greed is always the driving force. History repeats itself, and, well, I don't think when our world goes out it's going to be quite as glorious as a great big old dragon torching everything, so we can only hope that when we eventually destroy nature, that we have the same hope that the people, the Vikings of How to Train Your Dragon do, because there is hope. There is hope that in 1,000 years, when humans may be much better, and the time Hiccup would have been writing in, because, yeah, Hiccup wrote these books, it would have been us that were the people who were better, but maybe in 1,000 years for us, people will be better then, and dragons can come back. And maybe, like in WALL-E, nature can too.